All right. If you're here, you've probably dreamt of being your own boss, but felt overwhelmed by the idea of starting from zero. Am I on target? So, what if I told you there's a shortcut to ownership that doesn't need a decade of experience or a world changing unicorn idea? Today, I'm going to reveal three business models you can actually acquire, even if you've never run a company before. And one of them just might surprise you. Hi, I'm John Stoddard from DealFlowSystem.net. I've helped first-time buyers close 33 million in deals and raised over 50 million in funding. If you're working full-time and want to buy a business without wasting years on junk deals, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. Because what I'm about to show you could be the difference between waiting another 5 years or owning your first cash flowing business in the next 12 months. All right, part one, the acquisition mindset shift. So before we jump into the models, we've got to fix some thinking here. Most people believe they have to invent something or start from scratch to be a real entrepreneur. But the truth is, buying an existing business is often faster, safer, and actually smarter. So let me show you. I once had a student in Denver, corporate job, worked for a commercial real estate business, no MBA, no ownership experience. He acquired a commercial distribution company, making about 500,000 SDE for $1.6 million. And he used an SBA 7A loan and seller financing. He went from an employee, or let's say contractor of commercial real estate, to an owner in 90 days. At first he thought, I'm not qualified. I've never run a cleaning or distribution business. But here's how he worked through it. He learned to evaluate systems, cash flow, and key employees. Instead of trying to master every detail, he kept the general manager in place for a while, focused on business development, let the team handle operations, and he realized his job was to manage the business, not the mop or shipping products. So here's the kind of a takeaway for you. Stop thinking about build, start thinking about buy cash flow. That's what your job is, to buy cash flow. You're not really reinventing anything. You're acquiring systems already making money. And remember what Les Brown said about this? You should shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. So kind of which is riskier at this point? Building from scratch. Trust me, I've done it. It took a year to actually get a paying customer for turbosquid.com, or buying a business with customers, employees, and profit on day one. So if you know what you know now, if this cleaning company landed right in your lap, you saw it on BizBuySell, would you take it? Or would you pass because you had no experience? Think about it for a second. All right, part two, model the service business niche acquisitions. This is the one of the three that I'm talking about. If you're brand new, service-based businesses are often the easiest path to ownership. They're really simple to understand. They have reoccurring revenue, and they can run without being a technical expert. Let me show you how that plays out with the real world style deal. Picture this. It's a 20-year-old landscaping business in Atlanta. Annual revenue, $1.2 million. SDE, $285,000. Owner's retiring. He's worried about turning over long-term relationships. And our buyer, he's a first-time buyer, has never run a landscaping company. No industry experience. And in 3 meetings in, he's riding along in the truck, meeting the crews, talking to the clients. But this is where it gets tricky. The owner says, I'll sell only if you can prove you'll keep my people and clients happy. Here's how the buyer worked through that. He offered the owner a 15% seller note, which kept the seller invested in the business. He also agreed to keep the field manager on retainer for 6 months. What that did was reassured the crews and the clients, and the bank approved the SBA loan. Deal closed, and the new owner steps in with reoccurring contracts already locked in. So, what's the lesson here? You don't need to know how to mow lawns. You need to know how to manage people, processes, and cash flow. And service based businesses are perfect training grounds for first time owners. They're stable, they're understandable, and they often include built in managers. As Brian Tracy would say, successful people are simply those with successful habits. Buying one of these service based companies lets you inherit those habits on day one. Now, let me ask, if you were looking at these numbers, 1.2 million in revenue, 285,000 SDE, seller discretionary earnings, and 15% seller note, would you buy it? Or would you pass because you didn't have the direct industry experience? So think about that for a second. All right, let me give you another angle here. A podcast guest of mine acquired a mobile detail company doing 650,000 in revenue with 180,000 SDE. Absolutely zero prior experience, except having it done on his own car. He just managed the crew and added corporate contracts. And within 8 months, profits were up 40%. This is exactly how successful buyers do it. All right, part 3, model 2, digital asset content business buys. Now, we talked about physical service businesses, but there's a whole world of digital assets that you can buy and run with zero tech background. And I'm talking about blogs, e-commerce stores, niche newsletters, micro SaaS apps, businesses already making money online. And now I'm going to show you how this works with a real world story. One of my podcast guests bought a niche e-commerce store with 220,000 SDE for $550,000. Zero e-commerce experience. Now, he was nervous about the tech side, the ads and the logistics, but he thought, what if I can't handle that? And he almost walked away. He told me this in that podcast guest story. Here's how it worked out for him. He kept the existing VA team, virtual assistant team, in place. He followed the documented SOPs, standard operating procedures, and he focused only on one lever, improving email marketing, which was the big gap and he saw the biggest improvements from. And within 6 months, he said net profit jumped 30%. Conflict resolved, right? He realized he didn't have to have a tech wizard, just a manager of systems. All right, kind of what's the takeaway lesson of this story? Digital businesses are like turnkey machines. You're actually not coding anything, you're managing. Look for existing traffic, and that is key, and existing monetization, and existing teams. You can step in and make small, smart improvements without reinventing the wheel. You know, formal education will make a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. And sometimes you're going to make a mistake and you'll take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 2 steps back and 1 step forward. That's just part of learning this lesson. That's your formal education. And when you buy a digital asset, you're buying time, years of somebody else's work. Okay, I want to ask you a question about this point after number 2. If you found a blog making about $15,000 a month with 80% profit margin, would you run it as is, grow it, or flip it? Just curious, think about it. It sounds like if it's just 80% margin and a content blog, it could be monetized with products. Possible, you have to test that. Or maybe not. Think about it for a second. All right, let me give you another example of this blogs and stuff. One buyer I know acquired 3 micro SaaS tools, each one $100,000. He bundled them together, outsourced development, and focused on user growth. So in about 3 years, he sold the bundle for about $1.2 million, all cash. You can go right on to Micro Acquire or any of those other sites. No tech background, just smart management. That's model number 2 in action. Part 4, model number 3, micro franchise and licensing opportunities. Here's the third path that's becoming more and more attractive for first-time buyers: micro franchises and licensing opportunities. Think of these as businesses with training wheels, right? Remember the bikes with little training wheels? Really lower buy-ins and built-in support. And often marketing done for you. They just set you up with the ads. They already created the ads. You just have to bring your Facebook account. So let me show you how this works. There was a license deal in mobile car detailing. It was about 50,000 buy-in, turnkey training. Lead gen handled centrally. Profit split 80-20. Buyers in Phoenix wanted out of his 9 to 5, but he was scared of franchise fees. He thought, what if they take my money and they disappear? And because of that fear, he almost bailed. But here's how he worked through it. He did due diligence. He talked to existing licensees all around the state and out of state. He verified lead generation performance. You can go to Facebook and see what an account's ads are being spent on and almost how much to be spent on. Signed the licensing deal, stepped in on day one with marketing operations running, and 6 months later, he closed his day job and was earning full-time income from that. So the lesson here is micro franchises let you buy a proven playbook. You're essentially renting experience. Someone else's systems becomes yours. And I have to tell you, this is perfect for first-time buyers who want support. You're only limited by the imagination and your commitment. So if you commit to something like this, the systems are already there. So I'm going to ask you on this part number 3, if you could step into a business today with built-in training and customers, what's your next move? Would you run it yourself or hire another manager and buy another one? Think about that for a second, because once you start rolling them up, that EBITDA multiple starts going up and up. All right. Just let me give you another composite story. I had a podcast guest of mine licensed a commercial kitchen cleaning concept. 35,000 buy-in, corporate contracts fed him monthly. He scaled from 0 to about 200,000 SDE in 1 year. And another guy I know, a pet waste removal micro franchise. 25,000 buy-in, marketing and software included. Buyer added 1 upsell, deck cleaning, and double profits in 9 months. That's the model 3 in action. Low barrier, high support, and fast ramp up. So where would you find these deals? Start with Biz by Sell, Flippa, Acquire.com, and direct outreach. Funding simplified. Think of SBA 7A, think of seller notes, think of investor partners. Leverage communities like mine to evaluate deals before you leap. And remember, you don't have to be an expert in the product. You will learn, and you're going to learn fast. You have to be an expert in the acquisition process. And if you're serious about buying your first business, head over to dealflowsystem.net. I will show you the exact steps. So let's wrap up. If you found this video useful, smash that subscribe button. And if you're serious about buying your first business, go to dealflowsystem.net. That's where I show first-time buyers how to find, fund, and close your first deal the smart way. I'm John Stoddard, and I'll see you on the next one.